This is Hanging with Hendricks and Hennig.
And welcome in to episode 2 of the Hanging with Hendricks and Hennig podcast. Josh Hennig, Dashawn Hendricks hanging out with you. Dashawn, it was a crazy football weekend. We got some basketball to talk about as well. We got a lot of things to get into. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Living the good life. Another beautiful, beautiful weeknight. Hanging with the family and talking to you, man. So let's dive right into it. I know you want to gloat because you're actually right about something. So right. I'll give you the floor.
Right about something. I'm right more often than I'm not. Let's remind people of that. By the way,
don't do that. Don't ruin the moment.
Well, look, LSU won, and there were a lot of people told me who I was crazy. Not you, but some other people who told me I was crazy. And listen, I think last night's game actually surprised even me because I thought LSU would win maybe by 7 or 10 points. They won by not one, not two, but multiple touchdowns, and their defense clamped down on Clemson. I never expected that last night because I always thought this game was going to be like a 45-40 kind of game. Well, LSU got into the 40s, but Clemson couldn't get above 25, D.
Well, listen, I'm going to be the first one to say I was shocked. I picked Clemson to win the game. I just thought that Clemson's defense with that speed, Isaiah Simmons in particular, would really rattle Joe Burrow and allow the Clemson offense to score points and get turnovers. And boy, was I wrong. Let me first take my hat off to Joe Burrow. I've been one of his biggest critics all year. I've said looks like a Joe Brady offense and just a quarterback that you can plug and play. No, Joe Burrow really played his tail off last night, not only throwing the football, but moving the chains with his legs. He's the bona fide number one pick right now. It's not even close. And kudos to him, and congratulations to LSU for dethroning the mighty Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, that was Trevor Lawrence's first loss since junior year of high school. So, that guy has been on a crazy winning streak on multiple levels of college football, but I got to say, I think this might be a blessing in disguise for Clemson because sometimes losing can help you refocus, recalibrate, and improve as not just an athlete, but as a person. So, LSU is a great story that they won. I think this is a good sign for Clemson that when next year comes around, they may even be better than they were this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at next year, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be the Heisman race and the national championship race is going to be between Ohio State and Clemson.
Yep.
I mean, you got Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, two top quarterbacks in their class respectively, with Justin Fields being number 2 and Trevor Lawrence being number 1. I think the draft is going to go the same way next spring when you look at Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. I know the guys on both sides are going to be missing for the NFL draft, obviously, but when you got two quarterbacks at that elite level and two head coaches, Ryan Day, he only lost one game since he took over as Ohio State head coach. And then you got, obviously, Dabo, who's been amazing over there at Clemson. So if you're a Clemson fan, obviously you've been spoiled with the embarrassment of championships that you won in the last couple of years. Do not frown upon anything because next year you're going to be right back in it. But also, if you're an Ohio State fan, don't feel bad about that loss to Clemson because I believe you'll be right back in it.
I'm going to spoil you real quick. You know who's going to be the number 3 overall pick in that draft?
Please, enlighten me.
Watch for Dylan Moses, the middle linebacker from Alabama. That kid was injured this past year. He chose to come back to college. That kid's a leader. He's a freak. He is motivated, and I think he's going to have one of those years. He may be a borderline Heisman Trophy candidate next year. He's going to revamp that Alabama defense almost by himself.
I wouldn't doubt it. I was high on him in the preseason rankings. Obviously, it's a disappointment that he got hurt. But next year's class is going to be deep. You got a lot of talented sophomores. Justin Ross from Clemson, who had a big national championship game as a freshman and played pretty well last night. He's another guy that's going to probably be entering that class. So you got a lot of guys who are going to be talented. So you can look forward to that if you're a college football fan.
All right, so that was the College Football National Championship. That was Monday night, of course. We will get to the NFL games this weekend. Dashawn and I were both wrong. We'll admit it about the Ravens game. We'll get into the rest of the full matchups and review what happened a little bit later in the podcast. Also, we're going to get into Tobias Harris. We got to talk about Tobias Harris because I'm wondering, and I'm not asking you to answer now, Dashawn, but think about this before we get there. Is Tobias Harris not being appreciated enough? We'll get into that a little bit later in the podcast. But first, stick with the topic of football. I had Mike Clay, ESPN NFL insider, local guy. He vacations the Jersey Shore. He's from the Philadelphia area. Great dude. Well, I had him on my radio show on Saturday on 97.3 ESPN, and I asked about Carson Wentz. And, Dashawn, I want to get your reaction and talk about this because I think he said a couple things in this quote that was a little bit, it stood out to me. So I want you to hear it and respond. Take a listen.
I think the only people worried about Carson Wentz are outside of the NovaCare complex. You know what I mean? I think they're fully convinced he's the guy, else they wouldn't have given him that contract extension, even with the injuries that he was dealing with. And we've seen that on the field. I mean, this guy, he had a bump in the road there when everybody got hurt. And it was like the first game where it was like Jordan Matthews and Greg Ward. I think it was right around the Seattle game, kind of in that area where he was kind of struggling and missing throws. And then you're like, well, this is just going downhill fast. We know he's good, but he just doesn't have the help, and it's not going to work out. But then, there was a little bit of chemistry. They got the routes down, and suddenly, I'm not saying they were lighting up the NFL, but, he was pushing for 300, 350 yards. They were scoring touchdowns, and they were winning football games. So, I just think that he's not the problem. He has developed fine. He's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. He's not Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or peak Tom Brady, but he doesn't need to be, right? He's a top 10 NFL quarterback, maybe a little better than that, and they can win with him as long as they have a decent supporting cast, not an AAF supporting cast, which is what he had to deal with for about half of the season.
All right, Dashawn, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I 85% agree with that. Carson Wentz is not the problem with this football team. And I think that Mr. Clay's very, very right on when he says that the problems and the criticism surrounding Carson Wentz is outside the NovaCare complex. Listen, I've said it. I don't know what the hidden agenda is with everybody trying to trash Carson Wentz or pick apart whether it be his accuracy, his footwork, his injury history, his leadership. Carson Wentz was the darling of the National Football League in 2017. He was going to be the MVP. He made everybody better. He had the Eagles on a Super Bowl collision course. Then the Nick Foles story happens, and it's like the whole world outside of the Eagles organization wanted to embrace Nick Foles and paint this black cloud over Carson Wentz and make it look like he's the guy that should be traded. I don't understand that. Here's where the truth lies. Carson Wentz is a quarterback who has an A-level ceiling. And when I say that, I mean he is Lamar Jackson. He is Patrick Mahomes, to where I feel like he could be the next face of the NFL with those guys. The problem is although I don't want to say that he is, quote unquote, always injured, he is injury prone. He has been hurt in college and he has been hurt in the pros. That's just the fact of the situation. He needs to work on that. Now, the latest injury, I don't blame on him, but he has been, vulnerable to injuries in the past. He needs to get better with some of his mechanics. You still see some of the sloppy footwork. You still see some of the balls thrown into the ground. That he can get better with as he continues to get more healthy, which I believe that this year is a big year for him as far as getting back to that elite level status that he was in 2017. But Carson Wentz, to me, is a top 10 quarterback, top 5 quarterback, and he will be fine. The Eagles just need to continue to build around him and make sure that when he's going out in these games, he is good enough to win you 4, 5, 6 games on his own. But you want to build a team around him to where the other 6 or 7 or 8 wins that you want to get are a team effort and not just his.
Yeah, I would say that, one of the things I thought that stood out to me, what Mike Clay said, was that he said to me that he goes, look, he doesn't need to be Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. And I thought that was an interesting point because while Carson Wentz, we all agree he has top 5 NFL quarterback potential, I think right now he's closer to maybe 10 or 12 in the NFL than he is the top 5, just because of the fact that I don't think his development as far as long as he should be, because, as you just stated, D, this is a guy who's been injured. And sometimes, let's not kid ourselves, injuries prevent a person's progression, no matter it's in football, basketball, baseball, whatever it may be. So I think that Carson Wentz, I made this analogy about a year and a half ago. I think that he's a little like Joel Embiid in the fact that the injuries have prevented both of those players' development to their full apex of their ability, and we see flashes, but we haven't seen the full package week in and week out yet. And I think it was a good sign that he played all 16 games in the regular season this year. That's a step in the right direction. Now, the question is, for you, Dashawn, what now? Because new offensive coordinator coming in, new wide receivers coach coming in. There's a rumor out right now that Hines Ward could be a candidate for that wide receiver position. I think that Josh McCown should be considered for the wide receiver coach. There's talk that Jim Caldwell could be the offensive coordinator. So there has to be a consideration, right, for the fact that whoever they bring in to this coaching staff will have another layer of impact on his development as we go in the next season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been on record. I think John DeFilippo should come back as the offensive coordinator. He has familiarity with the offense that Doug runs. Obviously, he has familiarity with the the organization being there in 2017 when everything was going right, and Carson has familiarity with him. So I think it's just a move that it's a no-brainer. You don't want all these different OCs with Carson Wentz. That's probably why Mike Rowe stayed a little longer than he should, because you wanted the continuity to continue with Wentz. Listen, you made a point where you said he doesn't have to be Tom Brady, but was Tom Brady really Tom Brady before? He won a lot early, but people forget that Tom Brady had the perfect storm. He had guys around him that were in their primes defensively and offensively that helped his development go along at a quicker pace to where by the time Tom Brady was really Tom Brady, he already had 2 or 3 Super Bowls.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a fair point to make. Also, when you look at people say that, Mike said that he's not Lamar Jackson, he's not Patrick Mahomes. Well, Patrick Mahomes is really starting to ascend himself this year. He had a one year last year where he was the MVP and everything was great, but he lost in the AFC title game. So now this is the opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to kind of cement himself as the face of the league. I mean, Lamar Jackson had that title for most of it, but he fell in the playoff game. And Lamar Jackson has a lot to prove next year, too, what we'll get later in the podcast. So Carson Wentz is still in that conversation. I don't want people to just dismiss him because the last 2 years haven't gone his way.
All right, this is the Hanging with Hennig and Hendricks podcast. Josh Hennig, Dashawn Hendricks, we're hanging with you. We'll get to Tobias Harris and the 76ers coming up after we hear a word from our sponsors.
You're hanging with Hendricks and Hennig.
All right, episode 2, welcome back in. Hanging with Hennig and Hendricks, the podcast. Dashawn Hendricks, Josh Hennig. Look, man, we got to talk about Tobias Harris because I started having this conversation with somebody a couple days ago, and I want to do a little bit deeper dig because the question has always been, well, we assume Joel Embiid is going to be an all-star, right? He's one of the best players in the league. And there's talk, well, is Ben Simmons going to be an all-star? And I put out the question, well, why not Tobias Harris instead of Ben Simmons? You think about it, Tobias Harris is 7th in the NBA in minutes played. He's 19th in defensive total rebounds. He's 5th among his position in points per game in 19.3. He's 4th among those at his position in rebounds per game at 6.7. So you're talking about a guy, he's not just playing well, he's playing at a high enough level where he is at a high level with his peers. And you could argue that if anybody is earning their paycheck with the Sixers this year, it's Tobias Harris, but he's doing a little bit under the radar, Dashawn.
Josh, me and you differ on this one. I don't think that he's underappreciated. I mean, he's putting up nice numbers. That's nice, but it's not impacting winning a lot, honestly. Tobias Harris, at best, is a third option on his team. And for him to be an all-star to me, he can't be a third option. He's been a disappointment to me, honestly, if you want to talk. And we're talking two different things. Like, I know that he's played well in spurts. I know that his numbers look good. But I'm talking about impact of winning, and that's the most important thing I think that everybody can agree with, that he's not really impacting winning. The Sixers still lack that go-to guy, which people thought that it could have been Tobias Harris. He could have took a bigger role, a Jimmy Butler role in this offense, and it just hasn't really manifested itself into fruition. And that's a disappointment when you're paying this guy that much money. When you look at the conference and you're 7th in the Eastern Conference or 6th in the Eastern Conference as we talk here today, that's a disappointment when you talk about a team coming into the regular season that the starting 5 was supposed to be their best that they've had in a long time. So Tobias Harris is not an all-star to me. Can he be better? And is it fair to judge him in his Sixers tenure and say he's been a bad signing? No, it's too early. But to this point, I have to disagree with you. I don't think he's an all-star, and I really don't think that he's made that much of an impact on winning.
All right, so before I come back with you with my counterpoint, I just want some clarity. So you believe he's a number 3 option, correct?
On this team, I think that if you want to win a championship, as it's currently orchestrated, yes, he's the number 3 option.
Okay, so then as a number 3 option with his play and his production, couldn't you argue that he has performed at the level of a high-level number 3 option?
I would say that he's performed as a number 2 option, but that's because your number 2 option has been so bad and inconsistent, Ben Simmons, that his play needs to be at a higher level. Like Tobias Harris is a great number 3 option. He's played over the top as a number 3 option. But because he has to put more pressure on himself to be a number 2 and number 3, which I think he's capable of doing, especially with the money you're paying him, that's where the disappointment lies for me.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get clarity here because I feel like that you're complimenting him, but you're also saying you want more from him. So
yes,
give me an example of what more. But what more do you want? I mean, the guy's almost scoring 20 points a game. He's among the best in the NBA in rebounding at this point.
I feel like with the money you're paying Tobias Harris, with the role that you expected him to take, obviously with Ben, with knowing what Ben's situation is, I'd expect 20 to 25 points, 8 to 9 rebounds, and better than a 7th place or 6th place finish in the conference at this point.
So you feel like, and I'm just using this as an example, like Josh Richardson has had some crazy games scoring-wise, right? So you look at Tobias Harris, do you feel like those games should have come off of Tobias Harris's hands than Richardson?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just looking for a little clarity because I don't feel like that you're hating on him or anything. I just feel like that you're saying, look, Josh, I appreciate what you're saying, but I just don't see him as an all-star. And I can appreciate that if that's what you're saying. I just feel like in the Eastern Conference, if Ben Simmons is the all-star instead of Tobias Harris, I think that's a fraudulent selection because I think Ben has had a down year this year.
I agree with that, but we all know the all-star game is about who you are, not how you're playing. Ben Simmons was an all-star last year. He definitely should have been an all-star his first year, and he's Ben Simmons. I mean, and this is the problem that I don't want to veer too off of this conversation because I really want to get into this Tobias Harris thing, but this is the problem with the Ben Simmons, where people talk about a hypothetical trade with Ben Simmons and D'Angelo Russell. Well, people say that's crazy. The Sixers should never do it. That's ridiculous. Well, that's because you're going off of Ben Simmons' name. I know he's a better player, and I think his ceiling is still higher. But right now, this team would be better fit with D'Angelo Russell than it would be with Ben Simmons. And that has nothing to do with name or stature in this league. That just has to do with common basketball knowledge. So I agree with that Tobias Harris, play-wise, deserves an all-star nod more than Ben Simmons. But we both know that this league isn't about how you're playing. It's about who you are.
And I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because, see, we as a society, okay, and it's not just the people who cover the sport and watch the sport and are fans of the sport. It's people who even play the sport. There's too much where we are giving guys max contracts. We're out there giving guys accolades. We're putting guys on TV and video games and all this pub, and they're not guys who have really earned their keep. Look, Ben Simmons is a phenomenal talent. He's arguably one of the most talented dudes physically and all otherwise in the league, but just because you're fast and you're strong and you jump high, it don't mean nothing. You know who was fast and could jump high? Desmond Mason. He won an NBA slam dunk contest, and he's a nobody. I feel like that people look at Ben Simmons and we salivate at his potential and his ability, but yet he's not as productive as Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is just kind of out there doing his job, doing business, not being affected by what people say about him. And I feel like that people are giving Ben Simmons way so much attention, and Tobias is over here doing his job and not getting respected.
Yeah, and listen, I've been highly critical of the Sixers, and I'm going to maintain that stance. The Philadelphia 76ers, in my opinion, have been inconsistent with their process. They have gotten 2 players who I believe just cannot play together. I think that if you want to maximize Joel Embiid, because here's the question I have to you before I even continue. Who's the better player, Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons?
Joel Embiid.
Who is the player that you feel like the Sixers should build around, Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons?
Joel Embiid.
If you're going to build around Joel Embiid and your number one focus is to be the best team you could be with Joel Embiid, then you cannot have Ben Simmons on your team. Unless you have a pure point guard or a point guard who can shoot the basketball. If you have D'Angelo Russell, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid, then I think that you're fine. Because Ben doesn't have the pressure to shoot or be the number 2 option. That now goes to D'Angelo Russell. But you can't have it that way because you don't have the pieces to trade for D'Angelo Russell and keep a Ben Simmons. So if you are going to maximize Joel Embiid, if you are going to maximize what your team can be with Joel Embiid, then you need to get a guy a la a Lillard, a la a Wall, a la a D'Angelo Russell, who can shoot the basketball and demand attention on the offensive side of the floor. It takes pressure off of Joel. It takes pressure off of Tobias Harris. Now you're looking at Tobias Harris as an all-star because he's averaging the numbers he has, because instead of a 6 seed, you're probably a 2 seed. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes. No, I get what you're saying. Now, one more thing on Tobias specifically. Do you feel like that sometimes he is not assertive enough because he looks at it as, this isn't my team, this is Ben and Joel's team?
Yes. I think that if Tobias Harris looked at it as, we are 6th, 7th in the Eastern Conference, we need to get better, and I'm going to put the onus on myself with Joel being hurt and Ben struggling to push us over the hump, I think this team would be a lot better, and I think you could look at him as an all-star. The fact of the matter, he's just putting up numbers for a team that's more near the bottom than the top is alarming, and it doesn't scream all-star play to me. It screams a guy who's just getting in the flow of the offense and putting up numbers.
By the way, you mentioned a name just a couple of minutes ago. I want to bring him up. Did you see John Wall dunking?
Yes, I did. He's getting closer.
I got to admit, I got a little excited there. I got a little excited because I like John Wall. I like his style of play.
I do like John Wall. The problem is that, and I said that hypothetically, I wouldn't trade Ben for John Wall. No,
I wouldn't either. I was just meant a general John Wall. The problem with Wall is saying that he's a better shooter than Ben Simmons is like saying, is like saying that I'm a better rebounder than a short person. Like, come on, man. It's not one and the same. Like,
yeah.
Just because I am taller than somebody doesn't mean I'm automatically that much better of a basketball player. Like, I agree with you. I don't know if John Wall's fixing anything here. You need a
real quick. Do you agree with that D'Angelo Russell trade? Would you do that trade? But not just straight up, because obviously Ben's the better player. But if they threw in draft picks and other players, would you make that trade?
Okay, so I would make the deal under one specific contingency.
Okay.
I want to trade Ben Simmons for D'Angelo Russell and Alec Burks and the Warriors' first-round pick.
Okay. I'd make that deal.
Because here's the thing. I think Alec Burks on a winning team is a great guy off the bench.
I agree.
And I think that for this team, he would make a lot of sense coming off the bench. And then we know the Warriors are having a miserable season, so you get their first round pick. At worst, it's a lottery pick between 1 and 12. So you're going to get a quality player or a quality trade piece out of it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm making that trade in a heartbeat because you get a point guard who fits Joel. You get a guy in Alec Burks who can, shoot and score off the bench, which you badly needed, and you get a pick that could turn into a James Wiseman or an Anthony Edwards or something. You get an asset, which everybody that loves the process loves the asset. So I would do that deal in a heartbeat. You finally get out of this Ben Simmons, will he or won't he fiasco. I think it'd be a win for all parties. If I'm the Sixers, I'm trying to make that deal as soon as possible.
No Cole Anthony there?
I mean, I'd love to take Cole too, but the problem is okay, you get Cole Anthony. Do you move D'Lo to the 2 guard?
Of course you do. Well, that was the whole point of him going to the Warriors in the first place, was to have him and Steph in the same backcourt playing off of each other.
Yeah, so I mean, I love Cole Anthony. You know how I feel about Cole. It's Cole world. So I mean, I definitely take that. I mean, it's so many good things that could come out of a trade like that I don't know why, people would frown upon it.
Well,
but
here's the one thing. I think the Warriors would frown upon it because I feel like Ben and Draymond are kind of similar in what they're doing on the floor, and I could totally see Draymond trying to fight Ben Simmons.
Yeah, but then I'd rather have Ben Simmons than Draymond Green. And also, you surround Ben Simmons with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and all the shooting they have in Golden State. It's a dream made in heaven. I think that the Warriors would be more inclined to do it than you think they would.
Can I give you a super trade then, if that's the case?
Of course.
Super fantasy world. This is never going to happen, but I can always live in my dreams kind of trade.
All right.
Ben Simmons, Al Horford for D'Angelo Russell, Draymond Green, and that first-round pick.
Oh, wow. Listen, I do it.
Like, think about that team. Draymond and Joel, two nasty dudes on the block, fighting for rebounds with other teams, playing defense. I mean, think about how much pressure taken off of Tobias at that point on the defensive end. And then you can either keep that pick or trade it for more help, either on down low or the perimeter. And you basically have you want to play bully ball, you want to play defense. Let's go, Draymond. Let's get in some fights. Let's go.
There you go. I mean, I think that you owe it to the fan base at this point to try and maximize your best chance of winning. You've lost long enough. You played the process crap long enough. I think at this point, people are sick of that crap. They want to see winning. They want to see this team get a championship.
Yeah.
And I think that you're doing a disservice to this fan base if you're not trying to put the best product on the floor.
And I hear you, but on a more serious note, I'm actually not advocating for a trade per se. What I'm advocating for, and this is my opinion, I talked about this, a little bit with some people before, I feel like I just want to see this team finish out the season as is. Because I want this organization, this fan base, these players to be forced to see this thing through. So then, when the season ends and the team doesn't accomplish what we think they can accomplish, you can make the change with the head coach. You can make the changes you want with the roster moving forward in the offseason and kind of hit the reset button for next year. I think one of the problems with this team is they've had so much turnover on the roster in the last few years, nobody really knows their roles anymore.
Yeah, I mean, well, I believe that is true, and I believe that I'm not totally disagreeing with that. I think that you already know what you have in this team. I think the ceiling of this team is a second-round exit. I honestly do. I think that's the ceiling of this team because the head coach, it's sad because Brett Brown's a good guy. He's just not the coach to put this team over the hump. He has the vision of putting Ben Simmons as a point guard, and I just don't think it's worked out. That experiment has failed. So I do think that if they don't reach the conference finals or the finals, I think he will be fired, and I think they'll go in a different direction. But I think that if you are Brett Brown, you should be trying to get somebody in here. And I hate to keep harping on it, but once the Markelle Fultz situation didn't last here in Philadelphia, because he was the missing piece, he was the guard to play with Ben that Ben needed. And once that didn't happen, and Jimmy Butler is also gone, now you have the situation that you had before where you still need that piece to maximize what you have with Ben and Joel, and I don't think it's going to work out. I think that the Sixers right now are looking at a second-round exit at best, and Brett's not going to be here next year.
And Ben might not be here either if that's the case.
Yeah.
All right, so let's flip it over to the NFL. So we both got the Ravens-Titans game wrong last weekend. And, listen, we both got it wrong. But the one thing I was worried about in that game came to fruition. And I mentioned it multiple times on 97.3 ESPN. And some people poo-pooed me. Some people said, okay, maybe it's an idea. Harry Mays agreed with me more than anybody else did about this point. Dean Pease, the former Ravens defensive coordinator. He's had experience against Greg Roman. He's undefeated in the postseason against Greg Roman as a defensive coordinator. I think that was the main reason why the Ravens lost, because for whatever reason, Dean Pease is able to figure out a lot of these Greg Roman schemes. And the other flip side of the coin was there was 6-7 drops by the Ravens receivers. They did Lamar no favors. Not the offensive line, not the receivers. They made no adjustments to help the young quarterback. And I think those are the two main reasons why the Ravens lost?
Look, I'm not going to say that didn't play a role. I think that this game turned in the first quarter early. The Ravens start the drive on defense. The first drive of the game, they stop the Titans. Titans go 3-and-out. They get the football. They're moving down the field. Lamar throws a ball. Okay, you can say it's a little high. Still a very catchable ball. Mark Andrews drops it. It's a tipped interception. They go up 7-0. The Ravens have a fourth down opportunity to go for it on fourth down. They do not get it. 14-0 off a play action by Ryan Tannehill. I'm forgetting the receiver that caught it, but it doesn't matter. At this point,
the deep ball.
Yeah.
Oh, Raymond.
Yeah, Khalif Raymond.
Khalif Raymond. Yeah.
At this point, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, you need to lay a message and run the football down the throats of the Tennessee Titans. They did not do that. Lamar started trying to press and make too many things happen. I even said this when the Ravens were trying to make a comeback. Lamar Jackson was killing the Titans on scramble runs, not design runs, scramble runs. Lamar needs to stop buying into this notion that he has to be a pocket passer. He has improved as a pocket passer, but that's not what he has to be. Lamar Jackson needs to be Lamar Jackson. And when he runs the football on scramble plays, because he's gotten so better as a pocket passer, it puts teams in a dangerous position. He could have put more points on the board if he would have continued to put that pressure on the defense. I'm disappointed in him when it comes to that. He made a throw that was very bad. That was an interception, and his fumble. He could have played better. He's going to be the unanimous MVP. As the MVP of the league, he did not play well enough for his team to win. I put that criticism on him, but his receivers did not do him any favors. But when it comes down to it, I love Lamar. When it comes down to it, if you're the MVP of this league, you're supposed to win your home playoff game against the 6th seed. He didn't get it done, so he's going to get criticized, and rightfully so.
All right, now on the flip side, it's interesting you say that because you know what quarterback is a pocket passer and doesn't always run, but decided to start running, and that was a big part of his team winning, was Patrick Mahomes. I was all down for Mahomes versus Watson. We both picked the Chiefs. I don't think we were disappointed because we got Watson for 1 quarter, Mahomes for 2 quarters, and the rest was history.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say Mahomes is a pocket passer. He's more of a pocket passer than Lamar. He is mobile, and he does like to move around. But at the same time, Mahomes is amazing. He's the best quarterback in the league. I think Lamar was the best player in the league, quarterback, whatever position. He's probably going to get voted number 1 on the NFL Top 100 this year. But Patrick Mahomes proved that, listen, you're going to have to still battle me for this AFC crown for years and years to come. And I feel a little cheated because I would love to see Patrick versus Lamar in the AFC title game. And listen, no tighten up, all that. You know, it's good that the Tennessee Titans had their year. They're going to get destroyed against Kansas City. I'm sorry. This isn't a prediction. This is a spoiler. They're going to get destroyed on Sunday.
Well, there's a reason why they get destroyed. Let me interrupt you real quick because here's the thing that people don't understand about the Titans' 2 wins in the playoffs here. The Patriots game and the Ravens game. In both of those scenarios, because they had Derrick Henry, they were able to apply the pressure to the other team. They put the pressure on the Patriots. They put the pressure on the Ravens. You can't do that to Kansas City. Kansas City has had multiple games this year. No matter how much they're down in the second quarter, they explode. They are statistically the best offense in the second quarter in the NFL. They're the best offense in the third quarter of the NFL. It doesn't matter how much pressure you put on them. They're going to flip it back on you. And to me, that's what it comes down to. It's not about numbers. It's not about stats. It's about mentality. This Kansas City team puts the pressure on people. And Tennessee is not going to be able to put that kind of pressure consistently on the Chiefs.
Totally agreed. I mean, the difference is that if the Titans are going to win this game and go to the Super Bowl, it's going to be on the arm of Ryan Tannehill. It's not going to be Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is not going to beat Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. I don't care what Titan fans say. It's not going to happen. You have to be a quarterback who can win in a shootout against Patrick Mahomes because he's going to put up points. And I think we both feel that Ryan Tannehill is not that guy. The Titans had a nice run, man. And both of these games defensively, they have forced turnovers that have allowed the Titans to run the football and kind of had Ryan Tannehill be a game manager. A lot of people want to give Ryan Tannehill a lot of credit, and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but he's been a game manager. Derrick Henry has been the superstar for the Titans on offense in these playoffs. So I don't see that formula working this Sunday in the AFC title game. I would be shocked if the Tennessee Titans are going to Florida for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, look, let's be realistic. Tannehill doesn't deserve the credit as much as Arthur Smith, the no-name offensive coordinator for the Titans, and nobody knew his name before this postseason. This guy has pushed so many of the right buttons with the quarterback, with the running back, with the no-name receivers. I mean, people don't know who Janu Smith, the tight end, is, or Khalif Raymond, the wide receiver. Nobody knew who A.J. Brown was until they started blowing up with their fantasy teams this year. This offensive staff has done a great job of this team, but coaching can only get you so far. At some point, the talent rises up. And to me, Kansas City's got way too much talent, and it's in Kansas City. And you know what? There's a part of me that wants the Chiefs to win, because I want to see Andy Reid go to a Super Bowl in a scenario where he actually has the chance to win it.
I mean, I feel like he had a chance to win the first time. Let's not get crazy. But again, yes, I'd love to see Big Red back in the big game and have an opportunity to claim the ring.
All right, so we're both picking the Chiefs or the Titans. Flipping to the other game. I had the Packers, you had the Seahawks, but I think we were both right in how we thought the game was going to play out, because we both felt that Russell Wilson could make a game of it. He would keep it close, but in the end, I thought the Packers would hold on to win. They barely did. And by the way, if people took our betting advice, I said the Packers in the spread. The Packers covered by half a point. So that's pure luck. That's pure. That's not me being right as much as that's just pure, just happenstance. So let's not get it twisted here. I love this matchup. It's Green Bay versus San Francisco. But the unique thing is, this ain't about a quarterback, Dashawn. These are two teams that love to run the football. It's Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams of the Packers versus San Francisco's three-headed monster with Kevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, and Matt Breida. This is going to be a running football game.
Yeah, this is going to be an old-fashioned rugby, tough, snot-nosed, punch-you-in-the-mouth football game. Both teams love to run the football. Both teams play good defense. The Packers are real good on the back end. The 49ers front seven is the best in football. When it comes down to it, though, I think this is the 49ers' year. I think they're at home. Kyle Shanahan has pushed all the right buttons. And I said this to a buddy earlier. If the 49ers had a quarterback who you knew ceiling was, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Carson Wentz, that type of ceiling, you think they could win 3 of the next 4 Super Bowls because if they stayed healthy, because they're that talented everywhere else. They drafted that well everywhere else. I don't trust Jimmy G as much as other people, but I don't think this will be a game where he has to win it for you. I think that the 49ers, they're going to be down early and tested because Rodgers has that type of confidence, and he also has that type of experience. But I think the defense will rally. I like the 49ers in this one, 27-17.
Yeah, here's the deal. My heart wants a Rodgers versus Mahomes Super Bowl, but my head says 49ers are going to win the time of possession battle, which means they're going to win. I would say this is a 7.5-point spread at this point early in the weekday, Sean. I would actually take that 7.5 for the Packers. I think the 49ers are going to win, but I think this is going to be a much closer game than 7.5 plus points. I just feel like this is going to be a game like you said. I agree with you. Rodgers is going to keep it close because he's got the Rodgers magic, but the 49ers are just going to win that time of possession.
Okay.
So we both are predicting a 49ers versus Chiefs Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And I'm putting on the record, I want Green Bay to win. So I'm personally rooting against my pick, which is a horrible move, but I don't care because I want the State Farm Super Bowl. I want Mahomes versus Rodgers. Give me the 200 commercials. Give me the old versus the young. Give me the magic arms. That's what I want to see. But I just feel like San Francisco is just going to be too much for the Packers.
I agree.
All right. Before we get out of here, any final thoughts on the week in sports?
No, not at all, man. Excited for the weekend. I think it's going to be a good weekend, championship weekend. And, that's it.
You also got the Sixers playing, 4 times in the next 6 days? They're playing Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Monday in the afternoons. They got 4 games over the course of, 5-6 days. So that's going to be, that might be some ugly basketball a couple nights.
Don't remind me.
All right, you've been listening to The Hanging with Hennig and Hendricks, the podcast. We catch you each and every week with our perspective on the world of sports, whatever else is on our minds. D, your Twitter is?
At Dashawn Hendrick. No S, just at Dashawn Hendrick.
I'm at Josh Hennig, Hennig spelled Hennig. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on any podcast platform you use. You subscribe to us. You catch us each and every week. Have a great week and enjoy the games.
This is Hanging with Hendricks and Hennig.